Okay. Oh, we are live. Just got a notification that we are live. So this is awesome. I'm totally love this like asynchronous. There's a lag in this whole thing. Totally not infuriating. All right. Sorry for any issues, everyone, for getting started. We are having some technical difficulties. New systems. They're such a joy to have. And supposedly it says that we are live.
Excellent.
Um,
That's where we want to be.
yes, exactly. So I'm just should have opened up. We are live. Okay, that is awesome to hear. I've just had confirmation from Pip over there that we are live. So that is
Right.
awesome to hear. Hi, everyone. It is that wonderful time of the week again for Geek Speak. And today we are talking about conversion rate optimization. What is it? Why you should do it? And what are the tools you can use to get started today? And of course, my name is Phelan. I work with Pip at Seymour Digital Media, where we focus on search engine marketing.
And I'm Rina Little from Little Works Indie Media, and we run a little we run a digital marketing company in Vancouver.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, we wanted to talk today about search conversion rate optimization
Yeah.
and what it is. I think is the where we should start, just because that'll give everyone kind of a idea of what how to conceptualize it. And it is I think the simplest definition when you and I talked about it is when you run ads to a page or you're doing SEO and you're getting people onto your website or your landing page is to get them to take that next action, whether it's purchasing something from your store or putting their email for a newsletter, whatever the action is that you want them to take on that page, increasing the chances that they're going to take that opportunity.
Okay. So I'm gonna actually adjust for my perspective, but
Okay.
yes, I see where you would say that. For me, it's not always about getting to a landing page or your website. It's about getting to a page and having something happen. So, particularly on Facebook, they do have conversion, prefab conversion templates organized to collect information from a form within Facebook, so you don't actually get to your website. But so for me, a conversion is literally the thing that you want to happen wherever it is. So instead of calculating, like a lot of the ads are, will talk a lot about clicks. So the click from the ad off to somewhere else is what is measured. What we're talking about is measuring the actual action that you want them to take. So exactly what Phelan was saying, newsletter signups, purchases, book calls, anything like that, like those kinds of tangible things that will get people your leads. It's essentially for you to get your lead or your sale to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, And I'm just seeing, oh, we've got people are watching. Definitely
Right
leave a
on.
comment. Love
Oh
it.
yeah.
So, yeah, and yeah, conversion rate optimization is definitely, especially if you're doing anything with paid ads, is
Yeah.
super important because when we talked about this, that Google and Facebook don't really care once they've clicked because they did the job that, they brought you this lead. You now
Yeah.
need to make sure that the landing page is working, that the
Yeah.
form works or whatever the checkout works. You need to make sure all that's working. So that, and that's kind of on you to make sure that everything is working from a technical sense on the page as well. So that's a really good place to get started is to make sure that whatever you expect to have happen on the page, test it, make sure it works. Uh, First time we launched our course, I accidentally left the Stripe key on test
Oh
mode.
no.
Fortunately, I caught that because I did the testing, and then I went, "Oh, that's not right," and then so fix that.
So
But that's an example of, you know, uh,
yeah, so
some very basic stuff, but very important.
yeah, so some other classic examples of not knowing when you don't check your own work is when one of my clients ran a campaign for 6 months and all of a sudden for got some conversions for the first while, and then for about 6 months got zero conversions. I'm not sure why you would leave an ad running for 6 months with no conversions, but that's a whole other matter. But it turns out the form was not functioning, so something had happened with the form and tech glitches. So it's not really, you have to be testing your forums and your pages regularly, not just when you're running ads. And so for me, there are three aspects to organizing for conversion. And two of those aspects are really general to any kind of ad. So even if you're working with an engagement ad or or well, actually, engagement is really the one that comes to mind. Um, you still need to work with the two aspects, but it's the third aspect that's going to be super important for conversions in particular. And I know I'm really excited to hear about Phelan's new tool because I think it's going to be great. So, can I just jump into the
Yeah,
number one?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. So for me, it's like the three things is the number one is the targeting, how you're doing your targeting, which needs to be tested. So, if you're getting a good amount of interest in your ad, then chances are your targeting is working. If you're not getting any interest in your ad, then I always start with my targeting. And then the next part is the ad itself, which for me, there are three components to an ad that I test: your headline, your image, and your text. And I test all three of those things to find out what the best kinds of ads are. So you can do that testing. And then if you still find that the numbers are a little bit low, then I'll go back and retest my targeting to see if that can be optimized any further. And then the best part is exactly what Phelan was jumping right into is once you've got a good number of people, a good click rate on your ad, then you go measure to see what's actually happening at that point of conversion. So if it's on your website, if it's on the Facebook forum, if it's wherever it is, if everything is dropping off at that point, then you need to test that section. So, Phelan, do you want to tell us about your cool new tool?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been out for a little bit, but I've been using it a lot more, especially with the paid ads, because I don't know if there's a limit on the number of accounts you can have yet. But it is Microsoft's version of Hotjar. So it is called Microsoft
Oh,
Clarity, and it is probably it's a really useful tool because it does heat mapping, it does screen recording, so you can actually see like an individual person, and they of course anonymize, so any numbers get erased, like any forms they just don't, they block it out. Just but you can see where do they scroll, did they click here, this person on the phone, they didn't, like the person on the phone interacted differently than the person on the desktop, and you can see all these different breakdowns of recordings. And so it was really useful for us because we just recently launched a website and the tracking wasn't working correctly, but and the client was not getting leads like he was before. But we, after we fixed the tracking, we then went into the screen recordings to see how did people interact with this website. Was there some weird drop off, or they clicked and it didn't go anywhere? And it that part was actually was fine overall. It was a matter of our testing wasn't working, and there was just a hiccup with that part of it. But this way, we could verify for the client that hey, we've gone through all these recordings, we've done all this part, and then we could say like, and even show him that it's okay. We've just got to tweak this other part here. But it's a way that we can go through, the ads are working, they're getting clicks, people are arriving on the site, okay, Google Analytics is catching that, but it's not converting, okay, and then we could see the screen recordings and see how people are engaging with the website. And
so So this actually tells you, okay, so it tells you how people are engaging with the website. Does it tell you, like, does it give you feedback on your web page, or do you have to infer that? Like, so for example, will it tell you check your heading and make sure that's working properly or test your heading?
no, they don't do anything of that nature. Because they
Okay.
don't want, mostly because I think that they run the risk of like unanonymizing the data, and so they have to leave it,
Right.
because if they do any sort of analytical work over it, then they're now, they have to know who that person is, and they're trying to do, it's a fine balancing act that
Yeah.
these companies do about like giving the marketer or the business owner data and making it not like specific to an individual person. So that way,
Yes.
it's a delicate.
Personalized, not personal.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me again what the name of this tool is called. I tried to write it down really quickly and
Oh,
then I
Microsoft Clarity. I will leave a
clarity.
link to it in the comments.
Okay. And you did mention that that's a Microsoft product as
Yeah.
opposed to Hotjar. So how is it different than Hotjar, or have you worked with Hotjar before?
Yeah, so Hotjar, so there are differences between it. It's more in the feature set, like, these
Okay.
ones. Microsoft, because I think they're trying to make up ground, they're much more generous on their free tier. So definitely that's the one I recommend for people getting
Oh, I
started
see.
is you can, especially as a marketer, right now I think we've got 14 different websites that we're tracking, so much more generous than Hotjar, which I think is 3 to 5. It's been a while, but
Okay.
significantly less. But Hotjar has, like, they do oh, I totally blanked on the acronym, but it's basically you get rankings, net promoter score, that's what it is, NPS.
Okay.
And so they'll be like, hey, how do you rate X's website and their services from 1 to 10? And then so
Oh,
that way it
interesting.
can collect feedback as well. um,
Okay.
so that part is a little bit, that feature is kind of cool. I haven't used it as much because
Yeah.
Microsoft Clarity came out right at the same time I was like researching options. But it
Yeah.
definitely, as a business, especially if you're a bigger business, an MPS, the Net Promoter Score, is definitely something to keep an eye on. I know that
Okay.
big agencies spend a lot of effort on making sure that their clients, they have like a Net Promoter Score and then they maintain it. These
Yeah.
can be really useful for larger businesses. Um, and so, yeah, there's aspects like that where they're really good at collecting that kind of review data. But Microsoft Clarity, the biggest thing I was honestly surprised with is that Google didn't build one because, uh,
Yeah, you would think so.
yeah,
But
because it ties in so much with the other tool that we use, which is an A/B testing tool that's Google built called Google Optimize. I'm sure that they didn't build it themselves. I'm sure they bought a company, but
yeah.
um, all the same,
Okay.
they have one, and it deeply integrates with the Google Ads, so it makes sense.
Okay. So, okay, great. So then the next question that I have on this is that can you use Clarity on any kind of website, or is it platform specific?
Any website, it's just a simple bit of JavaScript. You just put in, like you
Okay.
would Google Analytics or any of that. I
You put
just,
that in the header?
yeah, I just put it in tag managers, just run it on
Okay.
all pages, and then off to the races. And it's very simple
Oh,
to get it set up. I wouldn't, one thing I would say, it really promotes this like integration with Google Analytics, but I find that their integration kind of sucks. It just muddies the data a lot and just adds a bunch of new
I
events
see.
that are kind of annoying. And I
Oh, I
haven't
see.
found it
Yeah.
really useful, to be honest. So that's something to keep in mind.
Okay. And then is Hotjar kind of the same thing where you just add a little bit of code and it
Yeah.
can go onto any site? Okay.
Yeah.
And how does that integrate with analytics, or does it at all?
Um, it doesn't integrate with the analytics as much. Again, I think that's goes back to the anonymization and like making sure that like everything is
Mhm.
kept separate, because it could be a little bit dangerous if you put it to like, you can, if
Mhm.
you're dedicated, you can figure out what's happening like
Yeah.
to the individual day,
Yeah.
and then break that out into those ones. So I think that they spend a lot of effort to make sure that you can't like retrofit what's actually going
Okay.
on with their and who these people are. So
Yeah. So these kinds of things, these tools actually help you discover if things are working in a functional way, right?
yeah,
But we also need to look at how pages are set up from a design perspective and a messaging perspective. So it's not just like the technical, is this button actually working? Is this form actually converting? Are there two buttons? Oh, yeah, I ran into this website the other day where there are two registration buttons for one event. And I'm like, dude, which one are they supposed to choose? And I tested it and I ended up figuring it out. But um, the way that it took me through the site, because the registration form actually went to a registration page that was off of the event page. And then I had to find the event page to go back and make the payment from a PayPal button, which was awkward. So it's almost like this will help you figure out your your tech bits, right? It'll
Yeah.
help you figure out all of that flow and whether or not something's broken. But when we test landing pages, we have to I mean, this is how I approach it. I don't know, and then you can maybe you've got some ideas of what you do, but I always start with the imagery again. So I'll try and figure out, like, you can actually test images really easily on Facebook ads in particular. And so usually I go from whatever's converting there to give me an understanding of what kind of aesthetic is appealing to the target market that I'm well targeting. And so I'll try and figure out what's going on there. I also like to test landing pages by using landing page software. So I used to use Unbounce. I haven't used that in a little while, but those are my favorite kinds of things, those kind of dynamic web pages, because and sometimes what I do is I'll test it on the Unbounce page because I've got a grandfathered in free account, of course. and then um, and then what I do is I actually, once I've determined what is converting, I'll move it over and build it on the website so that you can, utilize all that good juicy SEO from the extra traffic. But so I start with the image, and then I do it the same way that I do with my ads. I test the image, I'll test the headline, and then I'll test the copy. And and then there are some things that you can sort of figure out by doing some good. You can search for some really good landing page designs, and actually I collect them as I go. So the landing pages that I like and that I actually buy things from and all of that, I keep them. I do a little screen capture and I file them away so that I can figure out, oh, all of these that worked really well for me in my particular industry had the button here, right?
Yeah.
And then so then just go put the button there. Don't go make stuff up. Don't let your designers tell you what should be happening unless they're a specific landing page designer who's actually looking at the results, the analytics of their work, because they don't know they're going to put it somewhere pretty, but they might not know where the best place is for conversions. And there's lots of information online, and it does change up. So I like to look at what's new visually speaking, and then I like to look at what is prolific in terms
Yeah.
of design.
Yeah, and I'm also going to leave a link to a really useful site which the gentleman who coined the term conversion rate optimization, cxl.com. And it's they have a really decent free tier for getting started and learning about how to do conversion rate optimization. They cover a lot
Oh,
of what we've said here, but they have like specific to e-commerce. They have specific to like
yeah,
different industries and different
yeah,
landing pages. So they're
yeah.
definitely a good one to just have as a resource that I find very useful. Um, it's
Some,
definitely from our side because most of ours is Google search ads. So ours is testing out different copy, seeing which
yeah,
ones are working, and then if the landing page isn't converting, then we're going to take a look at does Google even think that landing pages, because they tell you landing page experience and they kind of have
yeah,
a bunch of factors, and so if it's below average, then we'll make sure that it loads
yeah.
quickly, that
Oh,
the
oh,
headline is yeah.
can I just insert some? We had this really great conversation the other day about being rated for your ads by Google and by Facebook. And what did we decide? Because I don't know, some of my best performing ads on Facebook had a low rating from Facebook, and there was one really high rating that I got, and the client really wouldn't let me change anything with it, even though the conversion rate click through rate and was just abysmal. And I couldn't understand why Facebook had given me such a good rating, except for we had a lot of comments on it. But who cares? We don't want comments. We
Yeah.
want actual things to happen.
Yeah,
I mean, we
exactly.
do want generally things that have good comments on them will help for conversion, but not always.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've definitely gone through that experience as well of having just absolutely. It was a very controversial book that, like, just because the guy was controversial. And anyway, they were promoting the book, and it was a lot of the workers who he had laid off were all responding, but it like
Oh
kept
no.
it going, and like it kept a lot of traffic, and
Yeah.
it's basically it was good because it kept the engagement going, and it was going off to a landing page. But and they just the people wanting to promote the book were just like, yeah, keep it going as long as it's not too bad. And
That
they
was
were
so
so there's definitely times where
yeah,
clicks can be useful because it's keeping the engagement high. But yeah, if your conversion rate is not there, then it's, I mean, why put in the
yeah,
effort if you're not
yeah.
getting that final result out of it?
Yeah, so when you look at those ratings, just make sure you're actually looking at the full picture and not letting Google and Facebook decide because as Phelan mentioned on our Tuesday call, they're interested in their lining their pockets, not necessarily lining your pockets. Like,
Yeah.
hopefully those two things are happening at the same time. However, you know, it's just an algorithm that tells you that it's not. You got to use your brain. Tools are to help you, but you cannot rely completely on tools.
Yeah, yeah, and then there's also some metrics that like Google, they have one that's called expected click-through rate,
Yeah.
and it you literally do not have control over that. Like you can do
Yeah.
all in the world, but it's literally rated off of every person with the Google Ads account who's bidding on a
Yes.
keyword. And so if someone else
Yes.
does a terrible job, that brings down
Yes.
your expected click-through rate and your quality score
Yes.
goes down. So like you
Yes.
literally have no
Yes.
control over that.
Yes,
So
like on Facebook, they'll give you the average amount per, per click that you're supposed to be paying. That's supposed to be good. That you can Google and find that information. But you have to remember that everyone and their dog is pushing boost post and filling in some information. And those averages are taking into account people that really fail at ads all the time.
yeah.
And so, what is good and what is average are not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, that's just something to keep in mind when we're working with any of these ads platform. Is ultimately you need to keep your own interests top of mind,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and basically, like you said, use it as a like a guide, but like don't live and die by it. It's basically you need to like look at, are you getting conversions? That's
yeah,
ultimately what you're wanting. And so it's definitely one that when you're looking at your landing page, to make sure that like, oh, a lot of people clicked on it, so the ad was having the effect, right? It spoke to people, and this was
yes,
it was getting them at the right spot. But the landing page is not speaking to people. Well, that means, looking at it like you're moving one step down the funnel to, okay, we're getting a lot of impressions, now we're getting a lot of clicks, but we're not getting any conversions. Okay, what's on the page that's not working? What's on the page that is a mismatch, that when the person clicked on
yeah,
this ad, that they were expecting this and then they got that, and like what is the
yeah,
difference and what's not
yeah.
lining up?
So headlines are really important. So
Yeah,
yes, because that's what clickbait is. Clickbait is like getting your interest up by a heading and then disappointing you when you get to the landing page and you read through the whole article and then the thing that it said it was going to be is actually not in that article and you're annoyed, right?
yeah,
I mean essentially that's awful. And I know that there are some algorithms trying to find that on Facebook now. They're trying to reduce the amount of clickbait on Facebook, and it is annoying. It's totally annoying. And there are people that write those headlines, and
yeah,
they only write those headlines, and they're writing for a very particular reading. So we need to make sure that what we write as headlines is actually going to be authentic to what we're actually trying to sell on the landing page. And the best way to figure that out is to actually just let someone else read it, let someone outside of your industry read it, and see if they understand what was promised in the ad. Was it delivered on the landing page? And then you know that you don't have that problem. Was it clear? Because usually it's not malintent, it's usually not clear, that's all.
yeah. Well, yeah, and especially if you're doing testing lots of headlines, you might not, that one headline might not be represented, the one that's getting clicked on the most on the landing page, or that message. So you
Sometimes
want,
the grammar is wrong, and that's all
yeah,
it is.
yeah, exactly. Or maybe one aspect of the bit of the feature set that you promoted in the ad, but it wasn't clear on the page. So they were like, "Oh, I
Yeah,
thought it was going to have like this thing." And so there's definitely, and so the other thing about that is, building off that, is where you can start to test with it is that Google Optimize, um,
yeah,
and so. I think we've talked about it before. It's honestly it's a really cool tool that you can do your A/B test, just a simple headline change, and then 50% of traffic, whatever your condition is that you
Is
want to
that
make.
is that just for Google Ads?
No, that's the cool part. Is you can make it
Oh,
all traffic will get 50% change in this, so it doesn't matter where they're coming from. You could make it look like that. You can also do personalizations based on a UTM
oh,
parameter.
okay.
So
Cool.
your email marketing, you could say like, hey, if you sign up to the email, and then if they click on the link to go to the page to put in a discount code, that discount code will only show up if they
Right.
are, they have that email because it needs the UTM parameter to trigger that text from
Yeah.
showing up.
Right. So the other thing that is pretty important in Facebook, I know a lot of people are not putting in UTM parameters, and that's really going to help you to discover if your conversion rate is actually working on which ad. So at the ad point. So if you're not like make sure that you're putting those in for each ad so that you can distinguish which ad is converting better than the others. That helps you shift your ad stuff because if it's not functioning at the ad level, it doesn't matter what you do on the landing page, it's not going to work.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And also, like, Facebook doesn't delineate what is the ads. Like, they don't tell you. They just say, "Oh, yeah, traffic from Facebook." They don't tell you if it's paid
Yeah.
or organic. That's another thing that to bear in mind as well. And also, they do have like a built-in dynamic one, so you could have it where it's like dynamically changes. You just say like ad group, and so it's like UTM parameter, and like you can actually just make it the whatever your ad set is, and then
Well,
that will be dynamically.
actually, I believe that Google Analytics does pull out the paid campaigns from the organic.
My experience, they haven't. They just say
Oh,
referral Facebook.
I'm going to show you. I don't think we've set up anything separately for it, but I'm going to show you on the down on a side conversation, and then we can actually update in the comments below. But I'm pretty sure that that does happen, unless
Okay.
it's just unless it's just my reporting tool that does that. But I'm pretty sure it's I can find it on Google too. But I
Um,
will.
yeah, if it might be because they might pull out like the FBCLID that like it's the hex that they put afterwards. They might be able to identify those from the if they're connected to your ads platform. So that might be what it is. Um,
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look because I can't remember if it's pulling in from Facebook directly or from Google Ads, but from Google Analytics. But I
yeah,
will check. We can
yeah,
update on.
for sure. It's definitely one.
But you also, yeah, but you're right. If you don't have that kind of reporting capability, you can definitely set up. Um, what do they call that? Segments. So you can set up different segments based on what you want to track. So if you want to track by campaign, if you want to track by ad set, if you want to track by ad, it's completely up to you.
Yeah, exactly, and it will dynamically change, which is cool. I've also set that up for Google Ads. I'll try and post this link to a script that I set up for Google Ads, and it just will all your ad sets. It'll just whatever the key type keyword is, all the stuff, so you can actually break it all down in your Google Analytics as well.
So if you're looking at where to start with this whole conversion thing, make sure you're tracking properly in Google Analytics before you do anything.
Yeah,
That because you can't really track what you're not what you can't track what you haven't set to be tracked,
yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
Also, one other thing, make sure to set up goals to go along
Yes.
with any of your events, and you can make them event based. The reason why you want to set up goals is it will track every instance leading up to it. So that multi-channel funnel, all those things you can see all the steps that went along the path, and so that'll be really useful for you later on. That goes, oh, because we've had a couple of clients where we thought the ads were converting well, but we didn't see that reflected, and then we went to the analytics and then saw like, oh, it was just the attribution model was off because people had clicked on
Oh,
the ads a bunch of times, but at the end it was a direct because they were
right.
busy, they just came back, and so at the end we figured out like, oh, actually the ads are doing really well. It's just we didn't attribute it correctly to the ads, so when the
Yes.
conversion did
Yes.
happen, it wasn't
Yes.
it wasn't linear because I don't know about. I mean, this is going back to our attribution model when I think were talking about that, but it's just the how do you pick which part in the journey is the one that fits. And so this is all helping you with getting that conversion rate optimization, that it's like, oh, the ads were working correctly. It's just people went away, then they came back and just filled out the form then.
Yeah, so I just want to paraphrase that a little bit because I feel like attribution models are I want to just like do it for the
Yeah, yeah,
beginners
fair,
here.
fair.
So basically, people when they make sales through a funnel, they don't go directly from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. They usually interact with different aspects of your marketing, your website, and your Google Ads at different points. So they might go to your site first from Facebook and then go away from your site and not make a sale, and then put in a search term into Google when they're ready to buy after they've done more research, and then they might go to your site through the Google ad to make that sale, or they might just type in your URL because they remembered
Yeah,
and get to you that way. So there are all those ways to get to you. And so what we're talking about is you don't actually know which point in that funnel is the point that made the sale for them in their mind because they used all three or four interactions with you. They may have had multiple interactions with your company. So what we're talking about, we actually did a video a number of weeks ago about um, what was that topic called? What was that topic called?
I think it was.
Because it's
I think I thought it was just attribution because we wanted to
okay,
know.
right. And so what happened, what we talked about a lot in that particular video was assisted conversions. So in Google Analytics, if you have your goals set up correctly, is what Phelan is saying. If you have your goals set up correctly, then you can make use of this little piece in Google Analytics that talks about assisted conversions, which will actually attribute much more of your monthly online sales to your marketing efforts by pointing out all of the touch points that all of your ads had in order to make that sale. So you might have like $5,000 in direct sales from Google Ads showing up as conversions, or and $2,000 from Facebook direct sales. But if you go into that assisted conversion section, it'll tell you like there were $30,000 of sales made where at some point somebody interacted with one of your Facebook or Google ads to get there,
Yeah,
assisted conversions. And that's actually a much fuller point. And it actually helps you to figure out, are your people like, are, is your, are your Facebook ads actually working to warm up your audience? Is your audience actually using your Google ads to make purchases? How does it work? And it's just very useful to figure out where to put your marketing money. It's very useful for you to have a realistic idea of for return on investment, because if you're looking at only that $5,000, then you might not actually realize how much it's helping. If you see the $30,000 a month, then you're only spending $1,000 in ads and maybe $1,000 in management fees, then $2,000 per month for a $30,000 return, you might say, oh yeah, that's way more worth it than the original five,
yeah,
the direct $5,000 sales. So it actually helps you make the decisions for your marketing much better.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's about, yeah, very much the idea of getting a fuller picture, because
Yeah.
any person, if you really think about how you're interacting with the internet, it's like there's nothing that's just like, oh, I want that. Like
I
almost
want
every,
that. I'm going to click on an ad and I'm going to buy it right this second.
yeah,
Nobody really, very few people do. I've
well,
done it though. I have to say I've done it. But
yeah,
I
but
feel like
I'm even gonna guess that you probably had an idea of the problem beforehand, so you've probably even done,
yes.
so
Yes, yes, yes.
like
And so much of
even,
marketing and yeah, so much of marketing is supposed to be about pointing out the problem that the person doesn't know that they have.
yeah,
So that's actually true. That's very top funnel. So you want to make sure that that whole funnel is actually functioning. In order to do that, assisted conversions is important, meaning set up your goals
yeah,
in Google
so
Analytics. Get someone to do it properly for you. That is key. That is key. Otherwise, it's really hard to track anything.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's a good place to land on. Kind of where we started is making
Yeah.
sure that everything is working and you're getting the full picture. So clean data, super important to help you with conversion rate optimization, because otherwise
Yes.
you're just groping in the dark, and also goes with just to close out one other thing that we had said: try not to do multivariant testing as well.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
bad
don't
idea.
pick one thing, test that one thing. Then it that works, yes or no, move on to the next like headline image on the page. Just start small, little bits at a time. Start with the headline is the best way I would put it. Anyway, that is time for us. We've
Right
gone a
on.
little bit long
Oh,
today,
wait a
but we
second.
started a little bit
Yes,
late.
we have.
So
And what is next week? I'm just looking it up because I got the
I
travel thing.
I think it's the what in the world of marketing, I believe.
Oh, it probably is. Actually, that makes sense. So
Yeah, because it'll be
we are,
the third week.
yes, that's right. This month in the world of marketing, March 17th, Greg Phelan, Pip, and myself. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.